So, 2020 has been So 2020 has been a year. We have all felt the tremendous burden of COVID-19, of politics, of fear, perhaps even above all, of grief. And there are some completely obvious changes or losses that have impacted me, as well as they've impacted millions of others. Things like events or projects that need to be canceled, funerals for close family or friends that I wasn't able to attend in person, and so on and so forth. But these are the things that I'm not actually going to talk about today. In many ways, I feel like my experience has been vastly different from a majority of the stories I've seen portrayed online, and I really want to share them with you because many of them are completely unexpected, and all of them pertain to my life as a small business owner, as an artist, and as a disabled woman with chronic illness, all of which are things that I've discussed publicly in the past. Some of the things I'm going to talk about today are bad. Some of them are actually positive, and yes, I know that some of these have only come to pass because of privileges I have in my life at this point in time that not everybody else has, and that fact is absolutely not lost on me. The first thing I want to talk about are masks. So I personally have not worn a mask this year, and let me tell you why. Before you all run down to the comments to yell at me, because I get it, I'm with you. Believe me, I totally agree. If you are in public, you need to be wearing a mask. I am pro-mask, don't you worry. But here's the interesting thing. Prior to this whole pandemic, quarantine, 2020 debacle, I actually already had myself a nice little mask. Cute, isn't it? So this mask is an N95. It has a proper filter. It is tested, science-backed. It's a great little mask, and it's fashionable. Look at that nice little pattern. That is very much a Courtney pattern. I had masks such as this before the pandemic for a variety of medical reasons. I am a woman who is chronically ill. I'm also someone who travels for work. I travel to lecture, I travel to teach about the history of hair work and the actual techniques on how to make Victorian hair art. So when I travel, when I am on a plane, when I'm around many people, I am wearing a mask. It is above all for my own health, just like everyone is utilizing them here in the pandemic. I was doing this beforehand. And there are a number of other medical reasons as to why this mask has helped me. I have a variety of allergies, some allergies that seem to come and go sporadically. That could be in part due to a syndrome called mast cell activation syndrome, where my mast cells they can freak out for unforeseen reasons, shall we say. So I would often just keep one of these in my purse. Sometimes I would go out and just a smell or something would just give me an instant migraine, or I'd start experiencing allergy symptoms, and I'd just take it out of my bag and pop the mask on, and it has helped. So the funny thing about this pandemic is that I haven't been wearing my mask as often because I personally haven't left the house. As of the day that this video comes out, it will be exactly 9 months to the day since I have left my home. 9 months. So please, 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 please wear your masks. I have been attacked by anti-maskers, and I haven't even left my home in a mask this year. Think about that. How insane is that? It's utterly nonsense. So if anything, I hope that this pandemic can help more people to understand the medical benefits of masks. Maybe in a future world, I won't get as many weird looks when I'm out in public with my mask. But on the reverse side of that, I feel like some of these anti-mask people who are out there, I honestly feel that I might experience more harassment in the future just for wearing a mask in the public in a post-pandemic world. So please be aware that people, even outside of pandemic, wear masks for a variety of different reasons. Speaking of the mask, if you're interested in joining us over on Patreon, I'm going to be posting a video over there related to masks, which I'm entitling The Worst Business Decision I've Ever Made. So that's a treat just for patrons. Join us over there if you would like. Which leads us more or less to the second unexpected way that 2020 has affected me. Considering the fact that I personally have not left my house in 9 months, this has actually been one of the healthiest years of my life. Let me explain. Part of my chronic illness involves chronic lower respiratory infections. And I do not remember in my life the last time I have gone a year without experiencing a severe respiratory illness that has symptoms that can linger, sometimes for months on end. So truly, we're talking bronchitis, pneumonia, coughs that linger for over a month, and just general problem breathing. So since I haven't been out, I haven't been exposed to the germs. No one in my household has left the house for even longer than I have. I personally have been much healthier on that front. Now, I still do have ehlers-danlos syndrome, which is comes with a bunch of odd bodily issues. If you haven't yet, please watch my week in the life of a disabled business owner if you'd like to see more of the day-to-day issues that I deal with in that disability. But it's great to not have to deal with the chronic infections that I normally do. So if anything, in a post-pandemic world, I will of course eventually want to get back to lecturing at live events, lecturing at museums and schools, and I'll want to teach classes in person and travel to study hair artifacts once again. But really, if anything, it's going to help me put things into perspective for what I really want to or need to do outside of the house after this is all over. And speaking of things that I do outside of the house, let's talk about my nails for just a second. If you've been around on this channel for a while, you probably remember from my hand gestures that I used to have extraordinarily long and pointy fingernails. Now, were they fashionable? Absolutely. Did I often find fun patterns and colors for them? Absolutely. But let me tell you a secret that I don't actually think I have discussed publicly yet. So for the first time, I would like to, I guess, admit the fact that I do have this very fun thing called Dermatillomania, which I've had more or less my whole life, at least most of it. This definitely started when I was a child, but it is compulsive skin picking. It's not like scratching, it's not like I have itchy skin. It's like my brain, for no good reason, says like, you have too much skin, let's just take care of that. So many years ago, after just absolutely being at a breaking point, unable to control my compulsion to scratch my skin off until I am bleeding and scarred, I decided to start getting manicures. The longer and more unusual of a shape that my nails were, the harder it was for me to do damage on my skin. So at first, I wasn't even doing many fun things with my nails because it felt like a medical necessity to get my nails done. And of course, thereafter, I said, well, if this is just a thing that I need to do, I might as well have a little fun with it. So I'm not necessarily lamenting the fact that my nails aren't really hip and cool anymore, but I am lamenting the fact that I have so many scars on my body, my arms, my back, just all over. I am very often just scratching and picking at myself because even though I can keep my nails very, very, very short, these still do a lot more damage than my long pointed nails ever did. So there's that. Another unusual little thing about, I guess, losing my nails, I have had long nails for so long that my fingers just felt clunky and awkward with everything I was doing after the nails finally had to come off early on in quarantine. Especially with texting, holding my fingers differently, I would make every typo imaginable. It was so frustrating. I'd forgotten how to text. My hair work was not as affected, but when I was doing artwork in the earlier days of quarantine, I did feel like I had to go slower because it was almost like I was renegotiating how I move my fingers and hold my hands. So that hurdle I have at least gotten over at this point, but it was definitely a thing early on when all of this started. Which brings me to my fourth unexpected way that 2020 has affected me. I have begun to step outside of my online box, so to speak. So I have a bit of a confession to make. I'm not going to take full responsibility for all of 2020 because this has been nonsense. But at the start of the year, before we Americans knew that this pandemic was a thing, I had dubbed 2020 my personal year of fear. And boy, I did not know what that actually meant at the time. Back then, what I meant by year of fear was that I was going to tackle my biggest fears head on. And at the beginning of 2020, first thing in January, what that meant for me was singing in front of people. I have always been a performer in some aspect or another throughout my whole life, and I have loved singing. I love singing, but singing is the one thing that I have never felt comfortable letting other people hear my voice. I've been able to dance, I've been able to act, I can give lectures in front of an audience, but as soon as I'm asked to sing in front of, doesn't matter, 1 person, 100 person, it's all the same, I'm horrified. So what did I do? I entered a live singing competition. It was at our local Hamburger Mary's here in Kansas City, and I had to sing on stage for the entire Hamburger Mary's in a singing competition, no less, every single week for, well, I guess we did January, we did February, and then March got, well, a little cut short. It was horrifying, but it did really help me step outside of my box. I did the first week and I didn't get eliminated. I did the second week and I didn't get eliminated. So I was starting to build up that singing confidence. But after March hit, April hit, there was a bit of a hiatus that the singing competition took, but they did eventually decide to return. I believe a couple of months later, and I was asked to come back for a comeback week, potentially the finale, and I had to decline because being immunocompromised, being disabled, being chronically ill, I was not going to touch this. Every single year, even something like a common cold or a flu nearly sends me to the hospital because of the additional respiratory issues that they always inevitably cause. So I was really sad that I couldn't finish my last performance at the competition. So I even went ahead and recorded myself singing a song. It was a witchy acoustic version of Toxic by Britney Spears, and I posted it, gasp, online, which, if singing in front of people is already horrifying enough. Hi, I'm Courtney, and I'm an internet introvert. I am way worse about communicating online, talking to people online, showing myself online. I am far worse at that than anything I can do live in person. There's something about the energy of having another person in the room with me that I just thrive on. So putting myself online in that way was huge for me, and it was decently well received, I think. So that was amazing, and it actually helped me in my work here on this channel as well, because that involves talking as well. If you put me in front of an audience, I can talk to that audience. If you put me in front of a camera, I space out and dissociate for probably an hour before I can bring myself to start talking to it, if we're being perfectly honest. So doing that, just really leaning into my personal year of fear, I have, as you've noticed, started posting videos every single week, and I have kept this up for months, and it feels so good to be able to be posting consistent content for you here on this channel. So all of it kind of ties in together. It has overall been a positive thing. I'm still not great about things online. Please don't ever send me like a Facebook Messenger message, because I will just panic and probably not even read it. I do answer my emails. If you have something business related, I do answer emails, I promise. I'm not that bad about communicating, but I do need to, for my own mental health, limit my channels for communicating virtually, and I've just always sort of been that way. So I have grown to be more comfortable. I'm getting better about posting these. I'm not nearly as reluctant as I used to be. If you've been here a while, you know my channel used to be like maybe one video a month. So posting these every week has been a huge thing. And a huge part of that has been my super supportive patrons on Patreon. So we will show a list of all their names at the end of this, but I do also want to give a huge shout out to them, because their encouragement also really helps me to continue stepping outside of my box and communicating effectively online. And the very last thing I want to talk about today is the job that I quit. But Courtney, I hear you ask, aren't you a hair artist and historian? Well, yes, I am. And this has been my full-time job for almost 6 years now. But I have also, for essentially my entire working career, been a dance teacher and choreographer. I've been teaching dance in some capacity for 15 years, I think. So even after I started my business, Never Forgotten, even after I started doing hair art for clients on a full-time basis, I told myself that I was still going to teach dance lessons. And even though back in the day, before Never Forgotten, when I would be teaching 3, 4, sometimes 5 days a week, I lost my train of thought. My brain is foggy. I'll get back there. So beforehand, I would teach dance far more often. Once I got to a full-time basis with my hair art, I told myself that I would still continue to teach, even if it was only one night a week. So that's what I've been doing for a few years. One night a week has been my dance teaching night. And that's because I love the art form, I love to choreograph, and I absolutely adore my students. So when the pandemic began, we went to online Zoom classes to finish out the remainder of our year, which was, boy, a learning experience, let me tell you. And I was faced with the horribly difficult decision of, am I going to risk coming back into the studio for the new fall season, which at that point, even with precautions, I know they're taking very good care to try to wear masks, distance in the studio as much as possible. I personally, being chronically ill and disabled, I did not feel comfortable doing that, so I had to quit my job teaching dance, and it is still eating me up to some extent. I miss my students tremendously, but in the interest of my own health, I felt like it was something that needed to happen. But that's yet another reason why I've been able to put out so much more online content, is because I do have more time without choreographing and lesson planning, let alone the hours it actually takes to teach. And as another happy result of having the experience of teaching dance lessons via Zoom, I was also able to translate that to teaching an online hair art workshop back in October, which I think was quite successful, and I absolutely intend to do more of that in the future. So everybody, that is our video for today. Those are the unexpected ways that 2020 has affected me. Please feel free, if you would like to share how your year has been affected, in the comments. I would love to hear. A huge thank you to my supporters on Patreon. You guys are so awesome for sticking with me through the horror that is 2020. And cheers to a better 2021, yeah? Yeah.